you will install HIPAA-compliant encryption software on all your computers. Now, that's a little tricky.
Yeah.
It didn't say you had to activate it.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Mi nombre es Nalia, con Georgia Spine en Orthopedics en Tucker, y estás escuchando Ayúdame con HIPAA.
Thank you for that intro. I am David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin. Hello, Donna.
Well, David, how are you?
I'm doing good.
All right, you're a little wound up.
Yeah, getting over a cold. Been taking a bunch of medicines. Actually, it's been more like the gummy bear medicine. So I'm like, give me some more.
I don't want to know. Just go with it.
Everything comes out in gummy form nowadays. So it's got to be. It's got to be kind of crazy though, because you're giving kids gummy candy, and then there's gummy medicines, and so you have to be careful that they don't get the two confused.
And that includes you.
That includes me. And I remember back in school, everybody used to walk around this time of year with the Ludens cough drops and just eat those things one after the other.
Yeah, it was one of the few things that I could do the cherry, and I have issues with cherry, but that's a whole nother story. But yes, I remember the Ludens cough drops, the little capsule with the little dip in the middle. You pop that thing in. All right. Moving right along.
So anyways, speaking of all this kind of stuff, if I...
Secrets.
Them things. You get the wrong one.
Okay.
It'll get you. But the thing about it, though, is it come in that little tin can thing.
I know.
Use that thing for so many other things.
I know.
I love my little Secrets cans.
Okay, moving right along.
Sorry, move right along. If you did take too many of those Ludens, you might be calling an ambulance. And we're going to be talking about the ambulance company settlement today, which came out a few weeks ago at the end of the year. We like the end of the year surprises.
December 30th. Boom.
Yep. So as we anticipated that they'd throw one more in, and they did. And so we're going to talk about the ambulance company. Of course, if you're from this area, it's the ambulance.
Ambulance.
The ambulance. So anyway, they had a settlement. No small amount. No, not terrible. So it's only $65,000. But
when we get into the details and you see that it's not a big company,
yeah.
They
Two
made
things.
their dent.
Yeah, it's not a big company, which we often hear, I'm too small to do HIPAA. So not a big company. $65,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to the cap.
Yeah, I know, right? That's an expensive cap.
So we'll get into that in a minute. So before we do that, what you got?
What do I got?
What you got?
Well, we got, first of all, we want to make sure everybody remembers that Data Privacy Day is Tuesday, January 28th, 2020. And there's plenty of stuff out there. We did an episode about Data Privacy Day last year. You can look that up. There's some things that you could do around Data Privacy Day to encourage, discussion, which is how you build a culture of privacy and security, which is what we're all looking for, right?
That is indeed what we're looking for.
Indeed. So we got that. And then, of course, sign up now for the HIPAA Boot Camp in March. I got some meetings today to discuss potential locations for the fall, but we definitely are doing March in Tucker, Georgia, March 24th, 25th, 26th. Registration is currently open and early bird pricing is there till mid-February. So get your approvals, get it all going so you can make your travel arrangements, and let us know if you need any assistance. But for more information, you can go to the HIPAAbootcamp.com.
Yeah. Make sure you get there early so you can get your head shaved.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
So, but while we were getting ready, because, it does take us time to get ourselves prepared for the level of entertainment we provide.
I know. Look at all this. I don't wake up like this.
No, neither one of us do. And he does more than I do. So, but David had some funny, scary stories. And we're not going to go into a bunch of detail or name names just yet.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. But David has 3 quick ones to hit on. So give it a shot here on the 3 quick ones that happened during our discussion, one of them. So.
Yes. So see if I can do this quick. These are all that happened this week and one live this morning. So first one, email server story. So client calls and they have email hosting with us. That's all they have. Had it for years, and we're moving them to G Suite, and the office manager who apparently does their compliance stuff says, "I just want to make sure when you move us to G Suite that we still have email encryption." And I'm like, "You've never had email encryption."
Now, wait, but let's be clear. The only service they buy from you is email hosting.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that is it.
They don't need any of your other stuff.
No, they don't need no stinking HIPAA.
Mm-hmm. They have another IT provider.
Yes, they have another one of these nationwide dental-only IT providers that obviously, since they're so specialized, they have to be doing a fantastic job.
So, moving right along.
But I will say, at no point in the multiple years of hosting their email, at no point has there ever been a discussion with me about HIPAA, nor a risk assessment analysis or anything of that nature.
Or encrypted email, which is what they think they have.
Correct. So, anyway, during my conversation with said compliance officer, I was using the term PHI to indicate what they were supposed to be protecting the CIA of. And the lady goes, whoa. What's PHI? And I'm like, okay, that's a valid question. So I answered her question. But then, in about 30 seconds later, she goes, I'm very familiar with HIPAA.
I'm well versed
in HIPAA.
I just don't know what PHI is.
So at that point, I just lost it. I just busted out laughing.
You literally started laughing.
I did, because I thought she was joking. But because I was like, a little self-deprecating humor is what I thought.
Yeah.
No, that's not what she thought. Okay. I would apologize for laughing, but I'm really not, because that's funny.
You don't get the joke.
You don't know what PHI is, but you know what HIPAA is. Okay.
You're very familiar with HIPAA. All right.
So I was like, go to helpmewithhipaa.com and read and listen as much as you can. Make sure you spell it right, because you being versed in HIPAA may get it wrong.
Yeah.
So that's story number 1.
And we don't know what's going to happen with this group.
No, but they do now want email encryption. And I said, okay, still probably need to look into that risk analysis thing.
Yeah.
I want to look at that. It's kind of a good
what
idea.
PHI really means.
Kind of a good idea. But, since you're using this nationwide dental-only high-cost IT company, they should probably know that.
And I'd just like to say, if you do listen to the podcast and you get to this episode, we're glad that you are learning and becoming part of the solution, not the problem.
Exactly.
Yes. It's not on you. It's on the healthcare industry that makes you believe that you understand. So,
yeah. And it could also be on the IT company.
On the IT company.
They're telling you.
It could be on the leadership of your business. I mean, there's a long list of reasons that this is a problem. But listen to more episodes and you'll know why. Anyway, on to the next one.
Yeah. One, you should ask questions. And if somebody says, well, we have, for example, we have encryption, we have HIPAA compliant, whatever. Okay, great. Then I want to dig in a little deeper and see that for myself.
Yeah. How does it work? If I'm in charge of compliance, well, Well, the owner of the company says we have it, and we've been using this gets much deeper story, and let's not go into it because it gets worse. It involves free Gmail accounts. Anyway, moving right along.
Yeah, zero trust environment. That's all we'll say. All right, so moving right along. We have a project going on. We're moving a company to some other equipment, and I'm definitely going to be careful here because I know they listen to the podcast. But this is not about them. They're
trying to do the right thing.
Right. They're doing the right thing, and they're doing the best they can with what they have. And the compliance officer is doing a great job, even though I know she's having to bang her head on the desk repeatedly dealing with some of the things going on. But in the transition with their EHR company, onto the new equipment, we're setting up new users and all that. And so the EHR, and we're talking a big, well-known EHR company, the implementation specialist says, we're having
to your engineer.
Yeah, to my engineer, we're having issues getting the user authentication to work. We would like for you to make everyone an administrator. Oh, no.
I'm not going to do it.
And then to make matters worse, he says, it's really best probably just to have one user account set up instead of having to deal with multiple user accounts.
This is tech support of a well-known EHR vendor.
Right. I mean, both cases, violation. You can't have multiple people using the same credentials to get into the EHR.
It's the EHR.
God.
So, we just covered, one of the things we covered in our 2020 is that businesses have to learn, and we're hoping this year we start to see that tide turn, that just because my husband that works in IT, or so-and-so worked at the hospital, or they worked at a vendor, so we're well-versed in HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, big, major EHR company. The guy is not a new person. He's been there so long that he's the only person that knows how to do certain things. Anyway, so then lastly, going live this morning, I sent an email to one of my vendors recently, and I said, among other things, I need to know what your media disposal policy is, right? Because, kind of one of those things that HIPAA says you need, right?
Yeah, this is a well-known vendor of data storage. Yeah, we'll call it that.
Yep. So asked the question literally a month ago. This has been a month going back and forth trying to get this question answered. What is your media disposal policy? i.e., see the security rule.
Yeah, it's one of those items. It's not complicated.
Right. Part of the safeguards. Anyway, and finally, this morning, I get an email back that says, we wipe and reuse the equipment. Is that good enough? I'm like, is that your policy? Your policy is we wipe and reuse. I mean, you don't have something in writing?
Like you're supposed to? Or a procedure that defines how you wipe and what type of devices, and if you have SSD with encryption, what do you do in wiping?
Yeah, I mean, there's something other than we wipe and repurpose.
So again, point made.
4 words. We were okay. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with wiping and repurposing that probably are bad in the bathroom, maybe.
Yeah,
but don't.
That was kind of wiping it went to, I don't know, but
I don't know what you're wiping and repurposing, but that is not a media disposal policy.
Yeah. They wipe it down really clean on the outside. There's no dust.
And these big vendors signed a BAA, spit out the word HIPAA compliance and HIPAA certified solutions crap all over the place. Mm-hmm. Why is it so hard to get something that they're supposed to have?
And we're not even going to let David touch on the, one of the discussions he spots in the online forums that he's been going off for some time now. And there is like 2 other things he went off on, but we're not going to let him go down that rabbit hole because he gets like 4 soapboxes then and stacks them up because nobody's listening to him.
Yep. And my voice will go up so high pitched.
It does. It does. Y'all should hear
terrible. I know. It's terrible.
Yeah. I thought that some young boy had come in and was telling the story as he went up octaves.
Start sounding like Michael Jackson.
That or a 10-year-old or what? When do the boys' voices start changing? Where it's like beep, boop, boop. It's always fun for me, but
the voice crack going on. Yeah.
There you go.
But all these things, all these things are to say. Number one, don't assume,
because we know what assume does.
Yeah, don't assume. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with your IT vendor, the person you think you have email encryption with, the person who's doing your EHR, the person who has this big massive company doing your backup or data hosting or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Or somebody that's worked in healthcare forever and is a compliance officer. It does not mean they really, really know when you start asking questions and having a conversation. It took like 3 sentences, less than a 15-minute conversation, and you learn right away.
Yes. So, I got a good one. I have to throw this one out.
Okay.
Because I'm so proud of her. Like we hired an administrative assistant a few months ago, and of course, got through some HIPAA training, and she had to go to the doctor the other day. And apparently she's in like a triage room or some sort, and I guess they're doing her blood pressure and all that kind of stuff. And the lady takes some of her medical information because she has to fill out this form, the same form you have to fill out multiple times.
Yeah.
So she fills the form out. The lady enters the information in a computer and then throws the form into the trash can. The trash can that is sitting beside the person. And so my administrative assistant lady says, what you going to do with that? And she's like, I threw it away. She goes, shouldn't it be shredded? And she's like, well, nobody can see it. And she goes, I'm looking at it. And she goes, well, nobody's going to dig through the trash and get somebody else's information. Yes.
You have no idea.
And so my employee, I'm poking my chest out. She says, think that's a HIPAA violation.
Oh!
And she said before she said that, the lady was super snarky with her. But once she said that, she goes, you would have thought I was the president of the United States. This lady was so nice to me the entire rest of the time I was in that office.
Yeah, because you know what you're doing.
I was like, I bet she was going, I hope she doesn't leave here and file a complaint.
Yeah. You got to wonder what's happening with your information. At that point, I would probably say, you know what? This is not the doctor's office for me.
Yeah. I think we're done here.
Yeah. I have to be. I couldn't even function. That would send my blood pressure so high, they might have to take me immediately to urgent care.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah. And then, she said also that apparently there were other places for triage happening. And she's like, I can look right across the room and see somebody's information pulled up on another screen.
Yeah, they don't care. They're not even trying.
Yeah. So
that's where we are, people. We are not kidding. People aren't even trying.
Nope.
All right. Which brings us to our discussion. That's a perfect segue into this case. So let's see if we can knock this out.
All right. We'll take a quick commercial break and be right back.
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100.
The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Cardin, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Cardin today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at cardinhq.com. Aren't your patients worth it? All right, now that we have abused your ears with that, let's dive into some ambulance cases. All right, so OCR announced the last HIPAA enforcement settlement of 2019 on December 30th, of all places, West Georgia.
No, right in my back door.
Yeah, so the OCR office in Georgia has to be the busiest in the nation, no doubt.
Well, it's the Southeast, so it's not just, they're getting all of the other, areas. So anyway.
Yeah. But, as we often do, we don't just read the headline.
Although when you read the headline, it should make you want to read the rest of it. It should. In the headline.
It's
like, ow.
Yeah. So the headline was, ambulance company pays $65,000 to settle allegations of long-standing HIPAA non-compliance.
Not violations, non-compliance. Long-standing non-compliance.
Yeah.
That hurts. I mean,
in other words, you ain't done nothing for a long time.
That's in the title. We're going to call you out. And as you're reading the press release, because, the press releases aren't big, but they give you a couple of little, the tidbits they want you to get. Mm-hmm. Because they know for some reason in the United States, people are afraid to read the details themselves. They want to get the tidbits that anybody gives them. As long as they agree with them, those are the ones they want. Mm-hmm. Anyway, in there is another statement that says, despite OCR's investigation and technical assistance, West Georgia did not take meaningful steps to address their systematic failures. So we've told you before, they'll call you out. They play nice first, but if you do nothing, as they say over and over, don't ignore us. Ignoring us is the way you end up here. So go ahead and hit your buddy Roger's quote on this one, because ow.
Yeah. So he had to say, Roger Severino, for those of you new to the podcast.
David, director of the Office for Civil Rights under the Department of Health and Human Services.
Yep.
The HIPAA Police Chief.
Yep. We like to call him our number one fan.
David does.
We know he listens. What's up, Raj? So anyway, call me later. All right. So what he said was, the last thing patients being wheeled into the back of an ambulance or an ambulance should have to worry about is the privacy and security of their medical information. All providers, large and small, need to take their HIPAA obligations seriously.
Okay. I mean, you got the title, you ignored us, you got that. So clearly this company said, we're not doing it. Or they did say they were well-versed in HIPAA, didn't need them. I don't know. But as we go through the rest of this, it is important to note that West Georgia Ambulance, Inc., that's the official covered entity name, they're an EMS service. And I worked in EMS for years, doing the business side of it, the billing and those kind of things. I understand about transports and non-emergency, emergency. I mean, EMS is one of those things that I really did learn about in my previous life. And they employ 64 people. And they've been around since 1977. So since the inception of HIPAA, they were supposed to be doing things. And it's only 64 people. And that's got to include, your admin, your billing stuff, and then your paramedics, and, they probably have some mechanics or something. I don't know, but That's not a huge company.
Right.
So let's start with that. Keep that in mind when we go through what we're having to do and the fact that $65,000, just saying, $65,000 on a company that size, it hurt, but they didn't want to put them out of business. They wanted them to fix the problem.
So that's, what is that? Just over $1,000 per employee.
Yeah, there you go.
No criminal bonus for you.
Oh, yeah. So what do you hear what happened?
Oh, yeah. So here we go.
So on February 11th, 2013, so this is another one that's an old one. And this is what gets me is that they still haven't done the work, or we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing here. They notified OCR about a breach that occurred on December 13th, 2012. So as close as you could get to the 60 days. Note to self. The breach occurred when an unencrypted laptop fell off the back bumper of an ambulance. And the laptop was not recovered. So that means somebody left it on the back bumper when they were treating the patient or doing whatever, or doing inventory because they have to inventory what's in the back of the ambulance, one of those things. But it falls off. That's the last place anybody remembers it, and no one's ever able to find it. And they report that this is what the resolution agreement says. The covered entity reported that exactly 500 individuals were affected by the breach.
When I read that, I was like, wait a minute.
So they knew they couldn't say less than 500, but my guess is they finally got to, well, there's at least 500 on there, so go ahead and just say 500. Yeah. So the OCR investigation indicated the following conduct occurred. You know, what they call the covered conduct. The stuff that you're supposed to do or not do, and you did do or you didn't do. Do what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what the first thing is?
Let me guess. An accurate and thorough risk analysis.
Boom. Easy peasy.
Wow.
Number one thing, not done properly.
Or not done at all.
Or not done at all. They're saying they didn't do it, so you don't know whether they did nothing or they did one of those check the box, answer a few questions. Do I have a policy? Yes or no?
And if not, click here to download one.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of systems that'll say, do you have this policy? And you say, no, I don't. They say, okay, well, fill this out, and now I download this. Now you have the policy. You don't know what's in it. You don't have to implement it. And we'll talk in a minute about why that's important. The covered entity failed to have a HIPAA security training program and failed to provide security training to its employees.
I see this all the time in smaller providers.
Yeah. All they talk about, here's what HIPAA means, here's what PHI means. Don't do this, don't do that. Use a password. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we see too is the annual HIPAA training. Did I get on my soapbox about the OCR event, about people that came there?
Yeah, you did recently. Yeah.
In
a previous episode.
Right. And they almost didn't stay because it wasn't going to count toward their annual HIPAA training.
And then blurt out, basically, we're violating HIPAA.
Not just HIPAA, but violating civil rights laws.
Yeah, civil rights and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We're not going to do that. Okay.
Yeah. Annual HIPAA training. Anyway.
All right. Also, in this one, the covered entity had failed to implement security rule policies or procedures. So they had them, is what it sounds like, but they didn't implement them. Exactly what we're talking about. Oh, you don't have this policy. Here you go. Here's a template. Fill in the blanks. You're good to go. Now you say yes on your risk analysis, which is only asking you if you have the policy and procedure.
For only $499, you can get the full HIPAA risk analysis and documentation for your practice. Download here.
We're here for you. It catches up with you if you have a policy and procedure. The funny thing is our clients that have been around for a little while now, and so we, the first time through, they wouldn't have necessarily a policy or procedure. So they'd say no when we'd say, do you have this? But then once they would say yes, the next question our systems ask is, do you have proof that you've trained people, you have documentation showing you're actually doing it? And they're like, well, no, you tricked me. I thought all I had to say was yes. No. This is why we now have our own policy and procedure program.
Yeah.
All right, so So they're doing the $65K plus a 2-year cap. So you got to wonder what the amount would have been without the settlement. Anyway, because they've been around since the beginning of HIPAA, and remember, every day, and it's willful neglect if they're not doing it. So it must have been a big number. But basically, that cap, they're building a complete privacy and security program under the watchful eye of OCR.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what they're having to do. And, our clients think that we're rough and tough on them. That's my favorite quote. Your assessment is like a colonoscopy without anesthesia.
And, that's what happens when you get outside the box. Or excuse me, outside the checkbox.
I know, right? The lady that said that, she goes, yeah, y'all broke me. I was like, because we're like your drill sergeants. That's boot camp. That's what we do. But anyway, this is very specific in their cap. It's more specific in many ways. There are statements in here that I'm like, really? Let me back up and read that again. But if you want to know what you're supposed to do, if you want to really understand the reasonable and appropriate requirements that they expect to see in a HIPAA privacy and security program, just take this and read it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think they got a pretty good deal, $65,000 to have 2 years of help to build their program.
To be told that's wrong, don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you know these guys, tell them we know how to help them out. But hopefully they're not just downloading some templates and filling it in. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Anymore.
Risk analysis and risk management, that's always the first thing. And you expect that they have to do an accurate, thorough, enterprise-wide analysis of security risk and vulnerabilities. Now, here's where this gets, that incorporates all electronic equipment, data systems, programs, and applications controlled, administered, owned, or shared by the covered entity or its affiliates that are owned, controlled, or managed by the covered entity that contain, store, transmit, or receive EPHI.
Mm-hmm.
That's some very specific stuff.
It is. It sounds like they may have some other companies that they own that do business with.
Or they say, well, we outsource that, or, it's not our fault or our problem. Yeah. I don't know, but clearly there's some other stuff in there. And then they say they shall develop a complete inventory of all electronic equipment, data systems, off-site data storage facilities, and applications that contain or store EPHI, which will then be incorporated into the risk analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know about you, but we ask people for an inventory of those things as a regular process. It's part of our regular process. Give me an inventory of your software. What are your critical business applications? What devices do you have? Give me an inventory of your, all your, well, here's a list of our computers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not all electronic equipment because you've got things that are transmitting PHI that are called like firewalls and wireless access points. You don't even know where they are. IT does that for us. Right, David?
Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Yeah. But you're not even covered. medical devices that are connected to your network that contain PHI. You're not covering the copiers that and other scanners and those kind of things those aren't yours, but they'll say, well, here's our list of computers from IT. That is wrong. All right. So within 30 days of the cap beginning, so by the end of January, they have to submit the scope and methodology by which they propose to conduct their risk analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give me, here's my plan of how I'm going to do this.
Right.
We have one of those. If y'all are still trying to figure it out. Okay. So then HHS will decide if just your plan to do the risk analysis is okay. And until they approve that, you're not supposed to do this SRA. Once they get approval, they have 120 days to send the completed SRA to HHS. We have people whine that, they're 6 months out. We're trying to get them to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time.
4 months.
Yeah. Check this out. You got 120 days. Get that done. All right. So then you get into that loop where you send it. HHS has 30 days to review it. They give you 60 days to respond to their review. And, that's normal. We see that. And you stay in that loop until HHS is happy. And then once they approve what your findings are, you have 60 days to give HHS your risk management plan. And here's what the risk management plan is supposed to include. This gets me back to, a few episodes ago when we're reading the responses to the BA due diligence, and it said, what was your risk management plan? None. We didn't have to do anything the last 2 times. But anyway, the covered entity shall develop an organization-wide risk management plan to address and mitigate any security risk and vulnerabilities identified in its risk analysis. The plan shall include a process and timeline for implementation, evaluation, and revision.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. When we have people say, okay, well, here's our recommended projects. What do you think about this? These are the things we recommend you do. High priority. Here's some low-hanging fruit, the secondary things, whatever. Now we need to put a timeline on them. What? Can't we just have the report? No. And you don't have to do a specific date. Do a quarter. What quarter are you going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
How about a year? Something. So, but then once they do that, they're back in the 30-day, 60-day loop. And then they must distribute the approved plan to the team involved with the implementation of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It explicitly says later, when it's talking about this SRA, that you should perform an annual SRA throughout the corrective action plan. Now, that's 2 years. So what do you think is going to happen after the corrective action plan? Do you think that they'll get to the point where they flip it off and say, no, we're going to do them every 5 years?
I would hope not.
So does HHS.
I mean, I'm trying to be optimistic here.
I'm trying to be a believer. But they will see the light. But here's the interesting thing I noted, and this was one of those points where I said, wait. Because, you're used to reading all of this over and over. And I went, wait a minute. Let me back up here. Because they're talking about the annual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, you shall annually conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of the potential risk and vulnerabilities, CIA of PHI, held by the covered entity. And then it says, held by the covered entity, affiliates that are owned, controlled, or managed, which we heard before, and its engaged business associates.
Huh.
Yeah, that wasn't in the first part. I know. That's when I went, wait, did I see business associates?
So they're going to conduct a risk assessment against its business associates.
Well, the CIA of the EPHI held
mm-hmm.
by them and their business, its engaged business associates.
So then I would be asking my business associates for their SRA.
Well, something. And document the security measures the covered entity implemented or is implementing to sufficiently reduce the identified risks and vulnerabilities to a reasonable and appropriate level.
Yes.
That's weird. I had never seen business associate in there. Anyway, then they have a whole section about training. Then you have to submit your training plan. And once it's approved, all workforce members must be trained within 30 days.
Alrighty.
Yeah. And then here's your answer for all of those who wonder about new employees. New workforce members must be trained within 14 days of employment and in all cases before given access to PHI.
Cha-ching.
So you got 14 days, but in those 14 days, you better not let them have PHI. And then it's very specific to say that the company is responsible for ensuring all workforce members comply with the training requirements, including regular training, annual training, and they have to review their training program annually and update it based on changes that may be in the environment and any information found in audits and reviews of their program.
So, yes, business owner. Yes, practice owner. Yes, Dr. So-and-so. You
got to do it.
You must do the work also.
You have to do the training. And that assumption, well, we know about assume, plus it's pointing out that you should be doing audits and reviews and changing your program appropriately. Then we get to the stuff about policies and procedures.
Oh, yes.
And this was a very interesting, because, usually it'll say you need a policy and procedure about X. But no, this is basically saying you need a policy and procedure to address all of the privacy, security, and breach notification rules. And it even points out the general rules specifically in part 160, where everything else is 164, which a lot of people don't pay attention to. But we covered that in the boot camp, and people are like, wow, that's didn't know that. But then there's this little bit. And I don't know exactly what this means behind the scenes, but it is something that makes me pay attention. Additionally, in light of HHS's investigation, particular revision is required to their covered entities, policies, and procedures relating to
number one.
So that again says they had policies and procedures.
Yep.
So they clearly grabbed a template in 2003, 2005, filled it out, put it in a 3-ring binder, put it on a bookshelf. That was the extent of their HIPAA program. So here are the areas that they are specifically concerned about. Business associates and business associate agreements. So not just business, a lot of people say all I got to do is have a BAA. No, you need to have a policy and procedure about how you're going to manage your BAs and control your business associate agreements and stay on top of things and blah, blah, blah. Number 2, technical access controls for any and all network/server equipment and systems to prevent impermissible access and disclosure of EPHI. Did you notice something special in there?
Network
slash.
Yeah, that's
Never
that's
seen that mentioned.
No, I don't think I have either.
So all the people who say, well, I gave you a list of computers that drive us crazy. We know there's networking equipment. Tell us. Okay. There you got something to point to. Number 3. Technical access control and restriction for all software applications that contain EPHI to ensure authorized access is limited to the minimum necessary amount. Okay. That would mean that the EHR vendor that said give everybody admin or just pick one admin, let everybody share it. No. Number 4, technical mechanisms to create access and activity logs, as well as administrative procedures to routinely review logs for suspicious events and respond appropriately.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I mean, hello. You and I both know that has to be done a specific way, and somebody better be doing it based on what this says. We need to see this, and guess what? And, we're going to see those administrative procedures, and we should see you showing us that you're actually doing it. Number 5, termination of user accounts when necessary and appropriate.
Yeah.
When necessary and appropriate, not like once a year. I have some folks, where we still do a little bit of stuff, and I'm like, you know what? If they hadn't logged in 30 days, disable them. Boom.
Yeah. That tells me they probably had a server with a bunch of old user accounts on it.
Required and routine password changes.
That is not convenient.
Password strength and safeguarding. That's number 7. And number 8, addressing and documenting security incidents.
Other than the one that you just had.
I know, right? Well, that was 2013. But the thing I find interesting is when we're doing assessments, like, do you have a policy to address security incidents? Yes. Do you have documentation of where you've done this in the past? Not applicable.
Yeah. Or
never had a security incident.
Or, go back and listen to our recent podcast about the business associate who said, we'll give you documentation about all security incidents, but we won't.
I know. The security incident doesn't mean a breach, but anyway. And, of course, they have to show they update the policies and procedures, and based on the findings of the SRA, they have to do that within 90 days of the risk management plan approved. They have to show they updated their policies and procedures. Then they get into another loop. Then there's a bunch of specifics about making certain that all workforce members review the approved policies and procedures and they sign off of them in a period of time. And then they take it a step further. They add in a completely separate section on the minimum content of the policy and procedure. So not only are we going to go through that list of all the ones you're supposed to make, and then we want to see these specific ones. And oh, by the way, of those, we want to see what you include in your process. And I mean, you know what I'm saying? I haven't seen this.
Well, I mean, for all those people out there that it's like, we don't know what to do. We need guidance from HHS and OCR, and there's nothing specific, and it's all just whatever you think it's supposed to be. Dude, this is pretty specific guidance.
Yeah. I mean, they're telling you the section of the law, which again, whenever we're teaching people in the boot camp how to read the law, here is why. When it says use and disclosures of PHI dash 45 CFR 164-502A. So you've got a long list of under the privacy rule, you're going to do this. Under the security rule, you're going to do this. Under the breach notification rule, you're going to do this. And then on your business associate agreements, you're going to do these things, and an accounting of your business associates, including all of these other things and copies of the business associate agreement that you maintain for each one of them within 30 days of now SRA and all that's got to be done, but within 30 days of the cap starting. So by the end of January, you will install HIPAA compliant encryption software on all your computers. Now that's a little tricky.
Yeah.
It didn't say you had to activate it. I'm just saying. And within 30 days of the effective date, you also have to revise your notice of privacy practices. They're busy right now, along with the normal year-end stuff. I'm just saying. And then you have the normal reportable events. If anybody fails to comply, if they fail to comply, you have to report it. So, I shared my password, or I didn't show up to training. That's reportable. And you have to do the annual reports that And in their annual reports, they want way more than what most people have ever seen. The attestation from all their employees, an updated accounting of business associates, copies of the training material and who conducted it and who participated and when they were held. I mean, just on and on and on. If you want to know what happens when you ignore them and you neglect your responsibility, read this cap.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, $65,000 is a drop in the bucket.
I know, and they're an attestation that you have to supply that you made reasonable inquiry that all this documentation we're doing is indeed true.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you who say can't afford it, don't have time to do it, I might want to rethink that.
Because affording it and time frames go out the window when you've got this 2-year plan. So
yeah,
I'm going to start using this 2-year plan as an example in the boot camp because whoa.
Yeah.
So there you have it for all of you who, like David said, think you need guidance on what you should do.
Here's your checklist.
There you go. The problem is that people don't want to use that because that sounds hard.
It's too hard.
Mm-hmm. That's why we're in business. We have to hold people's hands because it's not easy.
But Donna, can't I just pay you to do this for me?
Yeah, I'll be glad to make all your business decisions for you. You won't like them, but then you'll have to implement them because you paid me to do it.
But this other company said that they would do it.
I know they will. Go ahead. Check the box.
Yeah. Like I said, you need to start thinking outside the checkbox.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you can see that when I was reading that, I was like, wait, what? Yeah. And then go through it a little bit more. And then wow. I just kept seeing stuff over and over that I was like, okay, I'm wondering if this is going to be the new cap for everybody. Or this is the cap that was created because they literally had no program.
Yeah, you pissed somebody off.
No. Well, I mean, just with the headline, it's clear. And they take no steps when they told them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you really need to do a risk assessment. Okay, well, we did one. Look, no, that's not what one is. But long-standing non-compliance, not violations, non-compliance.
But I ran this software thing and it spit out my stuff.
Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of people that'll tell you they're, we're HIPAA compliant. They're probably doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to come to a head with a lot of those, unfortunately, because they think they've got it. They think they got it covered. It's like the person that called me and thought they were an email encryption.
There you go.
And I'm like, I don't recall ever having a conversation about email encryption. How did you come to the conclusion that you had that?
Because somebody said we had it.
As a matter of fact, I think my conversation was, this is not HIPAA compliant email. Don't send PHI through it.
You better be looking for your documentation after some of that other stuff is said.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, so that is our show for today, folks. Hope you're scared. Next time you get
that's a lot of information and those scary stories and how all of that just tied right in with the discussion today. It was unreal.
Yeah. Yep. So as you're getting wheeled into the back of an ambulance, start asking questions.
What are you doing with my stuff? Don't throw that in the trash.
Yeah, I know. Oh, man. So I think that, unfortunately, Don and I will never be able to retire. Help Me with HIPAA has a long life ahead of it. Anyway, so for those of you who want to sponsor the podcast, let us know. All right, so that's our show for today, folks. Remember to follow, share us out on your favorite social media site. Rate us on our podcasting app. Yes, we have an app for that. Help us spread the word. And as always, do not forget that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.